are a handful or slightly more than a handful of what I would call foundational principles that undergird this approach to chastity education that you've been immersed in today. Okay? I'm not going to name all of them. A lot of them are implicit in what's been said today and how it's been said. I want to point out 3, though. Not that they're even the most important, but I want to make sure that they're put on the table. Okay? This first one, it almost sounds cruel when you first look at it, but in the end, it's loving. Okay? And it goes like this. If a person really doesn't believe the teaching of the church regarding sexuality, if a person just doesn't buy it, okay, they really shouldn't teach these lessons, okay? And again, that sort of sounds, that sounds judgmental. It's certainly not relativistic, okay? But think about that for a minute, okay? Can kids spot a phony a mile away? Absolutely, absolutely. So if a person thinks that they cannot believe the teaching of the church as good and true and helpful, if they think they can sort of stand up there and teach it anyway, they really can't. They really can't. Besides, why would I want to put a person in a position where they essentially have to lie? I mean, that's damaging to a person. Why would I want a person to teach something that she or he really doesn't believe? Okay? So I think it's important for catechists and teachers to understand that they don't have to teach these lessons. Now, let me give a disclaimer. If you're a little nervous, like if the thought of addressing some of these issues with a group of kids, if that makes you a little nervous, if you feel some butterflies, that's okay. That's perfectly normal. All right? And that goes away a little bit with time, especially if you implement some of the principles we've discussed today. So there's a difference between not wanting to teach these lessons because you're a little bit nervous about it. There's a difference between that and not wanting to teach these lessons because you think all this teaching is a bunch of BS. You know? It's that latter case that I think we just have to be honest with people about. And I will say this, giving people the option of opting out, it can be very pastoral. I'll never forget, I was doing an in-service like this in another diocese that has a very similar strategy for chastity education, and this sweet elderly sister came up to me and said, you know, I don't know if I feel comfortable teaching these lessons right now, and it has to do with some things that happened to me when I was a little girl. You know, and of course my first reaction was, you know, sister, are you talking to somebody about that? Are you getting some help with that? And she said, oh, absolutely, I am. But she said, I just don't feel right now that I just don't feel that I would be comfortable teaching some of these lessons right now. So again, it was an opportunity, knowing that people don't have to teach these lessons. Okay, I think that's helpful. Just real quickly, the other two. This isn't just about kids. Far from it, actually. Really, this is about educating entire communities. I can tell you that parishes where these sorts of efforts really take off are parishes where really the entire parish knows what's going on and they're informed and they're involved. Just a real quick example. A parish was implementing a program very much like this in another diocese. And they announced the parent meeting. They made it real obvious in the parish that the kids were going to be studying chastity, okay? And there was that parish had a senior citizens prayer group, and they would take special prayer intentions at specific times of the year, so they got in on the action. So think about that. While these young people were trying to grow in chastity, they had these senior citizens praying for them and them specifically for this particular topic. To me, that's beautiful. Also, when you have these parent meetings at several parishes, it has led to conversations between parents and the DRE or principal, sort of along the lines of, hey, you know what, Judy, I'm not real clear on some of this stuff. I'm not so sure I learned this stuff too well when I was growing up. Do you think we could have like maybe an adult session or something, like an adult class? And of course that makes DREs go, yes, yes. Why, yes, we can, okay? So again, this isn't just about kids, far from it. And finally, regarding the media, certainly you want to use the resources that we recommend. There are other types of resources in various forms of media that you might want to use. So we encourage you to make use of media, but we do ask, and the policy states this, that you run that past the Office of Catholic Education if there's a particular video, for example, that you want to use. And what we hope to do in short order is put up a list, of good supplemental videos and things like that that you can choose from, and you'll find lots of choices on there. If you come across something and want to use it, run it past us, because sometimes some of this stuff is obvious, but some of it is not so obvious, and it's good to have a couple or three sets of eyes look at it, okay? And finally, just media literacy. So there's using media to teach. There's also encouraging media literacy and helping young people understand the tremendous impact that media has on them every day, almost all day, okay? So those are three principles that I think are worth stating. If you think about it, every day, almost all day, it seems sometimes, kids are being taught about sexuality, right? They're being taught by computers, they're being taught by song lyrics. I mean, you name it. There's a lot of messages, a lot of very powerful messages out there about love and about sexuality. And in a way this sounds sad, but it's important. You may be one of the only people in that young person's life who's really going to tell them the truth. You may be one of the only people in that young person's life who is going to share with them the truth about love, the truth about sexuality. Okay, hopefully you're not the one and only person, but you never know. You never know. You may well be the one and only person, at least for a stretch of the road, who's going to share the truth about love and sexuality with that young person. So all that is to say that you have, yes, parents are the primary educators of their children. That's a big part of what this program is all about. But never, ever underestimate your role and the impact that you have. You are doing something very, very, very important. And I know that it's very, very much appreciated by lots of folks, from God all the way down to the parents and families and future spouses of a lot of these young kids, okay? One thing I always tell catechists and teachers too, especially catechists, like in parish religious ed program, but it applies to everybody. Anybody who's taught for any length of time has had the experience of something sounding like a really good idea at 11 o'clock at your dining room table, like this lesson or this method you were going to try, and man, it just sounded so good, but oh my gosh, when you tried to do it with the kids, it was a disaster, right? If you've taught for any length of time, you've had that experience. But I think it's important, particularly in the area of religion and religious education, never underestimate the impact that you have on young people. Even on those days, you are having an impact on those kids because you're there. You show up. They can tell that you planned something. It may be a disaster, but they can tell that you didn't just walk into the room and that you didn't care enough to try and plan something for them. So please, 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 when your lesson goes well and when you have a good day, hey, that's something to rejoice in. But on those inevitable days when you just bomb, right? And believe me, I'm speaking from experience, you tanked, all right? But you still had a profound impact on the kids even that day, and please never forget that, okay?